Hey Flower Tribe, it's Kelly Lehman from Cranberry Fields Flower Farm, and I'm going to give you a quick video today showing you how I plant my sunflower seeds indoors. Most of the time I prefer to direct seed them outside. So here it is, it's like the beginning of May, and I will usually direct seed my sunflowers outside after there's a threat of frost, and I've let the ground warm up for just a little bit. So I think it was either last year or the year before that, Sheldon and I went outside. We had like tens of thousands of sunflower seeds. We put a load of them in the ground, like probably about 3,000, and they never came up. And the ones that came up were really crummy, and we were like, why did that happen? And I think what happened was that we put them in the ground like Mother's Day weekend, which was usually like my go-to date to put things, start seeds outside. And what happened was we got a cold snap for like quite a long time. It kept going, really, really warm, then really, really cold. And I think what happened was it messed up the whole germination process. So in the future, I'm going to wait about 2 to 3 weeks after my frost period when I'm doing like a major planting like that, just to be on the safe side. But for the most part, most people will put their seeds in the ground when there's no more threat of frost. You can look up, for your hardiness zone when that is. I think mine's probably around Mother's Day or maybe May 12th, one of the Flower Tribe members had said. But in the meantime, I can get started growing some of these sunflowers inside, and I'm going to show you how I do that. So you can, get either like a seed starter kit. The people at Haas had sent me over this seed starter kit to try out, which was really kind of fun to play with. But for the most part, I usually, let me show you some of the stuff I have going on here. For the most part, I'll just use some pots that I've had from past plants, and as long as they have like a really good drainage system inside, then that's kind of key. So you just want to make sure that whatever pots you have really good holes on the bottom, that the water can drain out, because you don't want your sunflower seeds or any of your plants to sit in soggy water. And so I'll show you like how I planted these guys in this kit over here, but know that you can just recycle, some of those old pots. I also like the idea of planting sunflowers in deeper vessels like this, because you wind up having super long tap roots on sunflowers because they're a super tall plant. So they have really, really long roots. If you wind up planting them in mass plantings like this, which, these seed kits are great because you can do like a whole ton of them. And then as they start coming up and they start, I guess when they're about, let me see where I have a good, I guess when they're about this size, this is a good size to start lifting them out of your little transplant containers. And basically you could just take like a little fork, and you can kind of very, very gently lift them out of these, these like little cells, because I want to show you how big these roots are. So let me check this out in here. So here's this little tiny plant, but the roots are pretty long. So if you can picture like this little sprout that looks so tiny, but if you can picture that in one of these cell trays, after 3 or 4 weeks, it starts to get like root bound, it starts to flop, and that's, I think, what happened with some of these guys over here. Even though this is a super tall pot, look how big this plant is. You can imagine how big those tap roots are. So it's important to either have a super, tall container, or to make sure that you keep kind of, taking them from the smaller seed trays and then putting them in some of those like deeper containers. But guys, it's super simple to plant sunflowers. I love this, and it's a great thing to do with children too. So I basically just take some seed starter mix, and it's easier to grow things like grow seeds with a seed starter mix instead of like your soil from the garden, because sometimes that's a little more compact. But if you don't have like a soil starter or a potting mix, by all means use the garden soil. But this is just going to make things a little bit easier. So this potting mix has like some material in it that's going to absorb the water. It's going to keep your seeds a little more moist, and so that's why people a lot of times will use that seed starter. So I have these little trays. They've got holes on the bottom, once again for that drainage. That's key. And I put this in these little seed containers. I already moistened it. I made it nice and wet. And what I'm going to do is basically just poke a little hole in the soil. I'll use either like a pen or my finger. And this is really important, guys. Sunflower seeds come in all different varieties. So some of them are like mammoth and they're really tall. Some of them are dwarf and they're smaller. Take a look at the back of your seed packet. That's going to tell you the exact depth to plant it in. It might be 1/4 of an inch deep, or it might be an inch deep, it might be 1/2 inch deep. So make sure that you consult like the back of that seed packet. So I'm going to plant mine. I'm going to put 2 in each cell because sometimes they don't come up. So you want to make sure that you have at least 2 shots of having a viable sunflower. And basically I'm just going to, use my finger, very fancy, put them in here, put 2 in each cell. Oops, that guy jumped out. And then I'm just going to water them in. So the soil's already moist, but I want to give it just a little extra shot of water because, seeds need water to germinate. If they're not moist, they're not going to germinate. They're just going to sit in the soil. I also want to make sure that that water is draining out. It's coming to the tray so that it's not, it's not actually like, drowning it. So that's the thing, guys. And so now it's all covered up. I'm going to put it in a really nice sunny window. So if you have a southern window, like with southern exposure, that's the best because you want it to have at least 8 hours of sunlight each day, 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. And it's going to start growing, but it takes a while. It might take a couple weeks, to start seeing some progress. But just make sure that you keep that soil nice and moist. And yeah, that's the story. So super easy, super simple. And pretty soon they're going to start coming up. They're going to start looking like this. And if you want, you can then transplant them into your garden after there's no more threat of frost. A lot of times I will harden off my plants by keeping them in these little planters, and I'll just bring them outside during the day. And when the temps get really cold at night, like I'll bring them in, but at least they're getting used to like some of those colder temperatures in late afternoon, because right now the temperatures in my house are like super, super warm. So to bring them from my super warm, cozy house and, planting them directly into the garden, like the next day, it might put them into a little bit of shock. So maybe let them sit outside for a couple nights, bring them back and forth, and then let them harden off. And one more tip I want to show you. I know some people like to soak their sunflower seeds the night before. So I think these sunflower seeds might have had like some dye on the outside of them because it turned the water almost to like a tea color, but that's okay. So sometimes people will soak their sunflower seeds overnight, and that just helps them to kind of germinate faster. So it helps that little plant inside kind of break through that tough shell. It'll start growing, and then you can actually take, those soaked seeds and do that same process that I showed you. But I have to tell you, like, I'm super lazy. I hate extra steps. That's probably why I direct seed into the ground. Like, I don't want to deal with, picking stuff up, replanting it, moving it around the house. But if you are a person that loves to plant things like that, then this is really going to like kickstart your plant and, get things rolling. So that's the story, guys. Check out my Mother's Day gift idea, which is my online courses. So you could check that out in descriptions below, because I've made a few courses teaching you how to grow fresh cut flowers in your own gardens, and then how to use those flowers to arrange them into beautiful arrangements. So you can actually gift this to your mom by going on the site. You just put in her email, you can give her a lovely message, and then boom, that's going to populate in her mailbox, and she's going to think that you're just awesome for like thinking of her. And now she's got all these fun online courses to follow to grow beautiful flowers. So aren't you cool? And another thing you could do is, if you're going to gift her with something like an online flower course, sorry for the shameless plug, but you can also go out into your own gardens, and if you grow like smooth hydrangeas or mop-head hydrangeas, even like limelight, panicle hydrangeas, you can actually start taking some of those like cuttings that are near, like some of those self-propagated plants. And I made a video on that. You can check that out. I think it was the last one that I made. You can basically just go out to your garden, and you can see sometimes there's little baby plants that these plants have already propagated themselves. And if you can just take like a straight edge shovel. You can cut into the plant, leave it in place for just, a couple days or maybe a week if you can. I know Mother's Day is coming up really fast, but if you can leave it in place for just a few days to get used to living by itself without being attached to that mama plant, then you can pot it up, put it in like a really pretty pot, put some pretty like cello around it, put a big bow on it, and then you can make that part of your Mother's Day gift, a beautiful hydrangea from your own garden. And then you have like the best Mother's Day gift. So just some quick tips there. And I'm also going to put a link for this seed starting kit in descriptions below in case you wanted a seed starting kit. Oh, and I wanted to show you something else that's terrific about this. This is also going to kickstart your process, because this one happens to come with the dome. And this is just going to capture some of that moisture, and it's going to keep it nice and toasty warm, and it's going to work as like a mini greenhouse. It's got some aeration here. And so once this sits in front of a window, you're going to see those seedlings come up super fast. So this is just a great way to like kickstart your sunflower seed planting. And that's the story for today, guys. So thanks so much for joining me in this video. And I'll also leave a link to my new podcast in descriptions below. And if you guys listen to gardening podcasts, please hop on over there. I kind of need some reviews, if you don't mind. I'm like the new kid on the block, and I've got like, I don't know how many reviews I have, but it's not a lot. And it would help me tremendously. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And please let me know where you're reviewing this from in this great, big, beautiful world, because I love to see how our flower tribe's growing around the globe each week. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Okay. Thanks for coming.